A portion of this video is brought to you by Beam's Dream Powder. Click the link in the description or hang until the end of this video to hear more information about Dream. Over the last couple weeks, it has been a lot of activity here in DC, here in the studio, doing work. And part of that work is to protest. Part of that work is to activate and try to motivate you to animate yourself to action. Yesterday, I was at the Labor Department. Brittany Page and I went down to participate in a protest against the overtaking of the United States government and payment systems and the illegal usurpation of the executive branch's functioning. The disregard of the separation of powers, of co-equal branches of government, and the unelected entrenchment of Elon Musk into our government. The day before, we were at the Treasury. The day of the inauguration, we were down there talking to insurrectionists. I was just going to say Trump voters, but I actually did bump into an insurrectionist. If you haven't seen that video, here's the thumbnail. You can go check that out. And I was very frank with that particular insurrectionist about his treason against the country, his traitorous actions to try to overthrow the United States government in service to Donald Trump to get him back into office extra constitutionally, extra democratically. And at the Labor Department yesterday, another one of them in my face. This one was less cordial than the one before. His name is Brandon Fellows, I learned afterward. And I'm going to read a little bit about Brandon Fellows, but I want to give you a scene for what was going on the ground, these passionate Americans who are trying to stand in the gap for the voiceless and the powerless, and then also a disruptor, someone who is on the ground to just make a scene and cause problems for people who are exercising their First Amendment rights. He's also, obviously, exercising his First Amendment rights, but it rings a little different from someone while we're in the shadow, the shadow of the United States Capitol just a few thousand feet away. You'll see it in the background in some of the footage. He is there at the scene of the crime to ensure that the voices of these particular protesters aren't quite heard as well as they could be.
No. Welcomed in by police. Very kind. Very kind.
This clown just told me he was a January 6th defendant.
Capitol Police were very kind that day. They were very friendly.
You weren't friendly to them.
No, I was very friendly. Would you like to see? No, that's actually false. No. The closest is Brian Sidnick, who had a stroke the following day because his superiors didn't give him a gas
Capitol
mask.
Police and Metropolitan Police officers lost fingers and toes because of you traitorous.
I think a lot more people, if there was a real insurrection, I think we would have saved a lot of lives. Look how many people have died as a result of the disastrous Biden administration.
Nobody wants you here. Go
home. No! Oh man, I thought everybody wanted me here. Now I have to. Oh man. Oh no. Yeah. Oh no.
The more he ran.
Excuse me. Don't step on my shoe. Don't step on me.
Brandon Fellows, apparently unemployed chimney sweeper and professional dipshit. I'm going to read from WUSA. This is an article about him. It'll give you a real flavor for this character. It's time for you to grow up. Judge sentences New York chimney repairman to 3 years in prison for role in Capitol riot. Brandon Fellows of New York was convicted on one felony of obstructing the joint session of Congress and multiple misdemeanors. A federal judge repeatedly admonished a New York chimney repairman for his contemptuous behavior and utter lack of remorse Thursday before sentencing him to just over 3 years in prison for obstructing the joint session of Congress on January 6, 2021. Brandon Fellows, 29, of Schenectady, New York, was convicted in August of one felony count of obstruction of an official proceeding and 4 misdemeanors for his role in the Capitol riot. At trial, prosecutors showed Fellows entering the United States Capitol through a broken window. Interestingly enough, you can hear him say that the cops invited them in. If you were invited in by police, Brandon, why did you need to go through a broken window? Is that your normal conveyance to enter a building? Yeah. And then proceeded to Senator Jeff Merkley, a Democrat of Oregon's office, where he smoked marijuana. Fellows then joined rioters in the crypt before heckling officers who didn't have helmets on his way out of the building. Prosecutors said Fellows then posted extensively on social media, glorifying the violence of his fellow rioters. Fellows was initially granted pretrial release, but had his bond revoked after multiple violations, including calling the mother of his probation officer. He called the mother of his probation officer harassing in a stalker-like move. This is a dangerous character who was pardoned by the dear leader. Fellows fired multiple attorneys and ultimately chose to represent himself, like a genius, including during a disastrous bond review hearing in which he appeared to admit to illegally attempting to get judges removed from the case in D.C. and New York. In addition to his conviction at trial, Fellows was also found in criminal contempt of court for repeated outbursts, including calling the proceeding a kangaroo court and a Nazi court. Federal prosecutors sought a top-of-the-guideline sentence of 37 months in prison, describing him as a cheerleader for violent rioters and saying he could be expected back at the Capitol on January 6, 2025, if his preferred candidate, again, doesn't win. Didn't have to be there this time because his preferred candidate did win. And when you win, there's no fraud. But when you lose, it was rigged. So there's a couple things I want to say here. That your activism in this moment is critical. Because when you create a vacuum with your absence, what is left is that guy. That's who's left. And to put a fine point on this, I want to share with you just brief remarks yesterday from Senator Adam Schiff on the floor of the Senate, giving remarks, speaking not to the specific instance of this particular dipshit, but of the dangers of who Donald Trump values, who he does not value, and who he has granted power through his pardons, and just animating them to action.
These are the people that Donald Trump pardoned, that he celebrated because they showed loyalty to him. And in Trump's world, nothing else matters. In order to carry out this plunder of the Treasury, to make the whole of government the vehicle for his self-enrichment and self-aggrandizement, he must have a loyal cadre willing to do even the most violent acts in his service. Stand back and stand by.
This is why we must remain in the fight, motivated to activism, to protest, to calling your representatives, whether they be Democrat or Republican, being on the phones every day. Memorize the Capitol switchboard number, 202-224-3121. Memorize that number, 202-224-3121. It's like an infomercial. 202-224-3121. Call your representatives. Let them know where you live, your zip code, and what your demand is. They work for you. And we need an opposition party right now. We don't need a minority party that lays down for Republican encroachment on the proper functioning of our government, of the separation of powers, of the articles within the Constitution that outline how our government runs. Who has the power to do what, and who doesn't have the power to do such things. Without you there, it's Brandon Fellows left in the gap. And that is a surefire recipe for disaster. Anyway, I welcome you to this conversation. What do you think? You can comment below. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily at dollemore.com. I do want to hear from you. If you want to help support this work, help me produce these videos and reach the millions of people that I do, you can do that. Take part in this work. You can become a channel member by clicking the join button below, wherever that is. And you can also go over to my Patreon page, patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. $2 a month. Doesn't sound like a lot, but if I'm able to marshal the size of this audience that has grown it's bananas how big the channel has gotten in just a brief time. Almost 1 million subscribers. Thank you so much. Follow me on social media. If you're there, I am at Dollemore. I'd love to see you there. And I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine and take care of one another. Do you, like me, struggle with your sleep? It doesn't take much to upend my sleep routine, and the work that I do certainly isn't helping. Believe me, I know the story. If you're lucky, you get the bare minimum, but some nights you hardly sleep at all. Not only is it terribly frustrating in the moment, the lack of sleep also wreaks havoc the following day. Your energy levels, your mood, your concentration, all of these things hinge upon getting the proper amount of rest. And then the mounting anxiety of facing another potentially sleepless night. That's why I'm so excited to talk about Beam's Dream Powder, a science-backed healthy nighttime blend for sleep that is clinically shown to improve sleep and have you waking up refreshed. Dream will help you feel your best every single day. And what better time to get into a new routine than at the top of the new year? Try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder now and experience the sleep refresher you've been daydreaming about. Get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Dollemore and use code Dollemore at checkout. Other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess, but Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. A good night's sleep is everything. Head to shopbeam.com/Dollemore now and use code Dollemore at checkout to score 40% off their best-selling Dream Powder. That's shopbeam.com/Dollemore and use code Dollemore to save. You can make the dream of better sleep a reality with Beam.